Hey, this is Harpo. I wanted to go through and show you the steps I took in order to build my house. I mean the pond. Originally there was a funky small doorstep and a brick area where a tree was planted, and where the pond was ends up being were three rhododendrons. It was kind of a problem because it's just as you the rhododendrons were about a foot below the grade of where you walk there. That's my ugly house at that time. So I dug out all of the dirt in that area, knocked off the top row of brick, continued to dig down another, oh, it must have been another 16 to 18 inches along the foundation wall in order to put a French drain in. Wasn't sure if it was going to be necessary, but given what I was going to be doing with the brick, I thought it was prudent. So I finished up the French drain, moving on to the bricking. That's the connection that flows out. I was fortunate to have a situation where it can drain out below the level of the French drain and just right out onto the driveway. So we tore off the bottom three layers of the siding and put cement board on. The cement board was nailed where I could, glued, and screwed. I shouldn't say I nailed it. Everything I do nowadays is screwed. That's the remnants of the tree that I took out. That's where all the dirt went to. I'm beginning the bricking process. It's a veneer brick. I was trying to match as closely as possible to my existing brick. I also bricked to the left-hand side of my foundation in order to match, and this is sort of me in process. Of course, now I've got two things going. I've got the bricking going. While it's drying, I'm working on the new entryway to my house. So I start the framing. Of course, start by bolting in essentially a box. Finish up a little bricking. I haven't put the mortar in yet. That's just the brick that's been placed onto the mortar board. I had to frame around the little brick thing was there, but I did use the small section that was there so that I didn't have to veneer over that. I continue. I had pre-painted in my garage over the winter all the decking boards, and the way I do that is I'd laid out these squares with masking tape. Then I'd just take plain old water-based varathane and put a coat on and put a coat of sand and let it dry and do that a couple of times, then put a couple of coats of varathane on top of it, and it's been remarkably sturdy. So it's starting to make progress here. This is over about a 2-year period of time. This is the fall, so probably the next spring is when I'm starting. Well, this is still the fall, but the next spring's probably when I started to dig up the hole for the pond. Now, when I received the pond, I was a little taken aback. It came in about a 20 by 20 by 24 box rolled up. I expected something much bigger, but I taped the pattern together and laid it out. It was a little more problem for me because I wasn't digging a hole to put it into. Essentially, I was building it up, and as I came to hate later, building it up with the sand that I was using was quite problematical. So I rolled it out, let it warm up, and that's me. I used flour around the outside of that pattern to give me an idea. Although it didn't require much digging for the shelf level, but the bottom level did. So as I continued to dig through here, of course I'm using leveling lines, and I had another line that was essentially the other direction as well, so I knew where that was as well. And it's starting to take shape here. Again, this is over at this point, a couple of days of time. And in comes the sand to start building it up. And that's what it starts looking like. That's the sand in the very bottom there's about 8 inches of sand that's built up at about 2 inches at a time, tamped down, 2 inches at a time, tamped down until it's about an 8 inches. Same with almost all this sand as you see it developing up. It's only a couple inches at a time pushing it down. And even then, I almost thinking back, doing it the way I did, I almost wish I could have filled the whole section of sand and tamped it real hard and then cut into that, but that would have required essentially the volume of the pond to do that. So here I am. This is probably the first cutout where I took the pond back out and essentially continued cutting into the sand and molding it. And it took about 5 fittings before I was particularly happy. I probably am thinking about doing a fitting again next spring. So I got a filter, including the UV filter and lights. I won't take you through the electrical, but you'll see a small black pipe coming out of the brick wall that brings all my electrical out. So the pond's coming together. I went and got some Montana red stones at a local rockery, and it starts to take shape, and I start putting my plants in, and it starts to look a lot better. So that's, in 7 minutes, how I got from point A to point B. And eventually the little fish, I bought them for about 19 cents a piece at a local PetSmart, and that's the egg-bound female when I just barely set up those tanks. Actually, it's probably